need to do something with the iPad?
This, I'm using this.
Oh, you're going to use that as
Did you want the screen?
No.
Okay.
No, we are not going to use the, I think we just have to bring it closer to me so that others can also see it, but we'll just use this.
Put it on this side?
Yeah, this is fine. Because it was already there, and so we might as well keep it there. By the way, the HCI session that we had here, Andrea was here for that day. We had a lot of problems with the projection. Somehow the projector was not working. It looks like it might have been fixed now. And so we had to not use the screen.
Okay.
And it was a big
Thank
fiasco.
Thank you.
there we go.
Yeah, this one is, I can turn it on and it projects.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are ready to go on that.
Okay.
All set?
That's kind of tricky.
Yeah.
You want it up?
No, just,
That way?
That much?
Okay.
this is okay, yeah.
Okay, I think we're good.
I don't know why the hum is there.
Yeah, because we have this power so close to it.
Oh, okay. All right, let's start. Good.
And then this is
What time do we have? Oh, 15 minutes late.
How come there are 3 views? Because people want to be. 3 viewers. Yeah.
Okay. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste Shankarananda. Namaste Shankarananda. Guru Padam Vijanmane. Savilasa Mahamoha. Graha Grasaika Karmane. Let's chant verses 53, 54 and 55, 3 verses. Starting with number 53, which we have done already before. Itham vakya istadartha ikyam vasti istadartha anusandhanam shravanam bhavet yuktya sambhavitatva anusandhanam mananam tu tat tabhyam nirvichikatserthe tabhyam tabhyam nirvichikatserthe tabhyam nirvichikatserthe chetasasya sthapitasya yat chetasasthapitasya yat ekatanatvametathi ekatanatvametathi nididhyasanamuchyate ध्यात्र ध्याने परित्यज्य क्रमाध्येयैकगोचरम् निवातदीपवच्चित्तम् समाधिरभिधीयते. So the text is now looking at the three methods of obtaining the knowledge and summarizing Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. So I thought what we might do is to take a little bit break away from these verses because we are almost coming to the end. And the last few verses that we are going to take are describing the method of meditation and nuances of meditation. So we may not follow it exactly what it is said. It is really meant for people who have really reached to a point where you have already quietened your mind and you have an understanding and so on. I found it to be a bit too detailed and not as helpful as I would like it to be. So after verses 55, 56, another 5 or 6 to go, we will do it slightly differently instead of doing it one verse at a time. And I think I would like to start that process already. So what I was thinking when I was preparing for the class is to kind of revise the basics of what we are trying to do. Just look at from another viewpoint. And then connect it back to the main subject matter, which is Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. So for that, so what I did was,
Change the source to.
no, I think we already had it a minute ago.
Okay.
Maybe we'd have to do it again.
Okay.
Just a minute.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So let's sort of step back a little bit, and see what Vedanta is saying. What is it exactly talking about? What do we have to do? And it's something that is not easy to grasp. And I got a sense of it when I was talking to the people in GTU, and we had a small session here with the HCI people here as well. I don't know, Andrea, were you there when I was talking? You got after that, okay. You were not there. So I gave them some ideas about this, nothing very detailed and so on. And what struck me was, and this is what Swami Dayanand used to say that, he said, it's a very interesting situation that the teacher is much closer to the enunciation of a solution. And so because there is a transition that occurs from the enunciation of the problem, and then you keep analyzing it, thinking about it and so on, and towards the end then you come up with a solution. So a Vedantic teacher that has been doing it for a long time is really, may not be all the way up to the end, but is a lot closer to the solution. So Swami Dayananda used to say that. He says, it's a remarkable thing that a Mahatma doesn't see a problem, and a samsari does not see a solution. And how the Mahatma and the samsari have to get together is a wonder. There is no connection whatsoever. And I am not a Mahatma or anything like that yet, but even I can feel that the language that I have gotten very used to, in the way I describe the vision, at least what is clear to me and so on, is far from what a person who is not introduced to Vedanta is. And so I see quizzical faces from the students when I went to, when you and I talk, then at least we are somewhat on the same wavelength. But in the other cases, it's not the case. And so the teaching means that you have to sort of revert back to a situation where you used to be a student like him or her, and then struggled with some of the problem definition. Just the other day when I was here last Sunday, there was a young man, Dhruv Khanna, and he must be in his 20s, I think, or something. So, I gave a talk about Vedanta and how it has affected me. So then he asked me later on at a break, he said, have you heard of some of the recent discoveries on how the consciousness evolves from the brain? So I said, no, I have really not heard it. He says, I think you should do that because, what do you think about it? And I said, I really don't know, but the thing is that the consciousness is already well known. We are not looking for any new ideas. So then I could tell that there is now a disconnect. He doesn't understand what I'm saying, and I'm struggling to talk to his language. He says, how can you say that? Because there is so much research going on, and something will come up, and you cannot say that. How do you know? So I said, you'll have to come to some kind of class. We cannot discuss it in 2 minutes. But anyway, so that was just a kind of like a broken dialogue. And I could tell that really it's an amazing thing that the vision of the Vedanta is so unusual that already even the students have a problem, and somebody who's not a student has no idea what you're talking about. So anyway, I just thought that it just encouraged me, inspired me to go back to the basics a little bit to see how,
Yeah, just to make comments on that, because I'm sort of trying to understand some of this from the scientific point of view.
Yeah.
So there are many people who now define what they call the hard problem in consciousness, where they're saying all this data gathering that our machines do, our brains does, is still not consciousness. It's still at a level of data processing, which is similar to a our mind almost, you can think of it that way. So people are now, even in physics, there's a guy called Arnab Goswami, for example, and there are many others, who talk about consciousness very similar to what Vedantic concept is. And they now use words like appearance and disappearance of things.
Right, and they've been doing that for a
So,
while.
there is a lot of similarity. Of course, the exact connection is still not there.
Yeah. So anyway, so going back to what Vedanta's basic premise is, so we should really be very clear about it. The premise is that there is a problem in our identity. How we define our identity, what we identify with, is really the basic problem. And there is a huge problem in terms of what I am and what I take myself to be. So to illustrate that, there are two examples. There are lots of examples given. But two of the ones that I picked out from is the example of a tiger cub who was at a very young age, just barely able to walk around with the flock of his mother and father and so on and so forth, got separated from his parents. Okay, so he's a tiger cub. It got separated from the flock of the tigers. Usually the mother takes the child with it, but in the jungle something can happen, and so what happened was that there were a number of some very gentle animals flock there. You can even take, say, like a lamb, who saw this little kid, and you know the mothers they all have a motherly instinct. I don't know if I ever told you this story or not, that in the Anaikati ashram, so there was a mother monkey, and the mother monkey had somehow lost her baby, or didn't have one or something, but her motherly instincts were still very, very active. So what happened was that there are a lot of little dog kids, in the kennel. So one day she picked out one of the small, this is a real story. In fact, I saw it with my own eyes, because somebody was describing, everybody was standing near a tree and looking up, and I said, what's going on? So they described the story for me. It has a tragic end. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But anyway, what this mother monkey did was to have the little baby dog cling to her. She was just doing like this. Now, here's what happens. If you have a baby monkey, God has given the ability for the baby monkey to cling to the body of the mother as she climbs trees. She's jumping from one limb to the other, and this baby monkey has the ability to just sort of put the claws around her and then not lose. So she thought this guy should be able to do that. So even when she started climbing, she needed all of her feet, all her hands to climb. So she would go up, and she has done it like 2 or 3 times now. And this baby dog drops down, and it happened right in front of me, and the fellow died. So what to do? Because you cannot just, how do you teach this mother? Anyway, this is just a side story. So what happened was that this baby cub of the tiger was adopted by a flock of lambs and brought up. So there was a mother lamb who took pity on him and let him suck the milk from her udders, and took care of this guy. And then they would all eat grass. And so the baby cub of the tiger also started eating grass. As he grew up, he also started eating grass and behaved played with the lambs and so on and so forth, and really grew up to be behaving like a lamb. See, this is important to see. Behaving like a lamb. Behaving meaning, this is a very detailed analysis done by Swami Maheshananji in one of the later chapters of Pancadasi. This example. I'm just giving you a quick summary because I just want to make a point. But essentially, this was done in great detail, and it has a lot of steps to it. And the behavior of eating grass is an important part of it. And so the baby tiger started to have habits like a lamb, and so on and so forth. And they would utter some words, some sounds. He will also say, so he just grew up. And now, the fellow is now become pretty big, and he's a huge tiger. But somehow the lambs also tolerated him. He's got some funny body, unlike him. They're not going to tell him, and of course the animals can't do that. What kind of who are you? They said he's a loving kid, let him stay with us. And he also behaved like a lamb. One day, this flock of lamb was invaded by real tigers. And the story goes that the tigress there said, "What the heck are you doing here? And come with us and roar like us." So he says, "I don't know what to roar. I just, . So he says, "Say like this, Arr." It couldn't quite bring him to do that, but he finally did that. Then he said, okay, here's a meat. Eat it. The guy is a vegetarian. He eats grass. And he says, no, he says, if you don't, I'm going to squeeze your neck. Here's a piece of meat, and the guy spit it out, and so on and so forth. And they killed all the rest of the lambs or whatever they did, and he took this guy with him. And it took him quite a bit of time to now start behaving like a tiger. He started eating meat, started roaring, he started running, attacking, as he should be doing as a tiger. It took him a long time to do that. So this is one example that was given in this. I'm still learning how to put it on. I don't know. This is brand new to me. And the second example is that of, really, this is also a very real example. Both examples are real. In that sense. The second example is that of a homeless person who had a very tough life, and he couldn't work anymore, and his family was separated from him. He had some sort of story like this, and he was living underneath a bridge and just eating crumbs and so on and so forth. So one day he was approached by a lawyer who said, are you John this and he says, yeah. So he says, I have some news for you.
Go ahead.
Your distant relative has left you, $100 million. So he says, go away. Don't bother me. Why are you making fun of me? I'm not making fun of you, I'm telling you. So, so finally the fellow said, well, prove it to me. Prove it to me. So he says, okay, here's a credit card. Okay, and this is in your name. I just got opened a bank account for you. Here's a credit card. Come with me. Let's go to this fine restaurant. And so he says, just make sure that you comb your hair and look a little bit presentable. And then just give the credit card. So the bill came to like $65 or something like this. And sure enough, the credit card was accepted. And she says, that's it? I can leave now? Yeah. Then he said, here's an apartment. He says, what I can't live in an apartment like this. He says, it's too nice for me. So he says, just trust me. Just live here. Let's buy some new clothes. So it took him a little while to shed his identity of a homeless person who doesn't know where the next meal is coming from to one where he cannot yet appreciate $100 million. All he can do is just, some kind of a day-to-day living. So Vedanta says, here is exactly the same situation for the human beings. Same situation. What is the situation? The question is, what is your pedigree? I think the first example in that sense is much better than the second one. The real question is, what is your pedigree? In other words, what is your swarupa? Like the tiger's pedigree is a huge body and the ability to roar and kill all the other animals and eat meat and be the king of the jungle. This is the pedigree. And the identification of the cub is that I'm a lamb. And it is not a problem for him because he grew up to be a lamb and he felt this is okay. But that's not his pedigree. That is just a superimposition. It's an identification. It's an identification problem. So Vedanta says, wait a second. Do you not see that you as a human being, the one that you take yourself to be, with a body that has this interesting curve, and the curve is, it's like this. This is the body, it has a beginning. And then go up to that, and then apakshiyate vinashyati iti. This is the body that you are identified with. And as the body also changes, you also change. You say, I'm very young, and now I'm old, and don't know how many more years I have to live, and I'm going to disappear. This is the pedigree you have taken yourself to be. And along with all the other things, the fact that your physical body is very vulnerable. It can disappear any minute. You have to work very hard to maintain it. Then on top of that, you have a lot of software which bothers you. I am sukhi, I am a dukhi. People don't like me, I've got to do this, I've got so many problems, and I don't have enough money. All kinds of things. It's the whole day from morning to evening, you have some set of funny ideas about how you are, all those kinds of things. That is the pedigree you have taken to yourself. You have taken your mental ideas that appear to you to be you. The physical location of the body is to be you. Both of them you have taken to be you. This is the pedigree you have taken. And he says that is not your pedigree. Don't you understand? The pedigree you have is something which does not change. A pedigree which is nature of happiness. It is the pedigree of Paramatma. Even Devas are not as happy as Paramatma. That is your pedigree. That is the family that you belong to. Don't you see that? No, I don't see that. Well, see that then. And so that is the whole issue of seeing it. And so that has I'll come back to that a little bit later on. So to the 3 steps to attain this identity. So one is that someone comes by, because you cannot do it yourself, because you have now, you're very accustomed to the false identity. Very accustomed, you're very comfortable with it. Comfortable meaning in the sense that it's not as if you like it, but there's nothing else you can do. You feel this is who I am. What are you talking about? What false identity? There's no falseness of the identity. This is what exactly so. For example, there's that homeless guy. He says, I understand you're sympathetic to me and you're trying to cheer me up and so on, but this is what I am. This is what I've done in my life. I've created some problems for myself. I didn't work enough or didn't study enough. I lost my family, whatever it is, but leave it to me. Whatever it is, this is me. That's my identity. Don't try to change it. Maybe you can give me some shelter in the winter time. That's about all I can get. But I am basically a homeless person, just waiting to die. And it's very funny to see the look on the faces of these people. Yes, hopelessness. They've got, no laughter whatsoever. And deservedly so. They're in a very tough life. And they're accustomed to it. They're just basically waiting to die. And that is the identity. And so what are you talking about? So someone else, what I'm saying is that you cannot suddenly change your identity. I mean, it might happen in the real life or something. Somebody says one day, I'm tired of this, I'm just going to do this or whatever. But this just does not happen. So you need an external help of some kind. But somebody who says, what is going on? You don't understand. Like this guy who gave him money and he said that this is not your life. You have $100 million. So the first thing is someone pointing out the mistake of identity. And the person that has to point out has to be very trustworthy. This is why we say that, for example, when I talk, I don't normally say, this is what I'm telling you. I usually say, Swami Maheshananji, Swami Dayananji, Swami Chinmananji, Swami Desmanji. Why? Because the whole army is behind me. It's not just me. You're not going to believe me. You'll say, well, I don't know about that guy. I don't know why he's saying all these things. But I'm telling you, this is the whole family of acharyas that are behind us. They are all saying. All I can do is to be truthful to the teaching. That's all. You have to at least trust me that this person this is why you don't look at some brand new person who comes up and he says, I've got a theory. It doesn't happen. It has to be, so for example, as Ashish was also saying, what I'm thinking of it is when you say it is similar, there's no similarity unless you go to Vedanta. It may be somewhat similar but not authentic. It cannot be reproduced by anything else. There's only one truth. That's it. And there's no reason to recreate it. You cannot figure it out. It's impossible. It may look very similar, but when you really peel the onion, you'll find it is very different. So a very authentic person has to say, this is the way it is. And you're totally wrong with the identity that you have covered yourself with. And so there is a partnership of the teacher and the student. This is exactly what verse number 30, the first line of the 53 verse is saying. Itham vakyaihi tad artha anusandhanam shravanam bhavet. Anusandhanam means that you have to really think about it. Question it. What do you mean by an identity? Really, I am of a different pedigree? I don't understand that. How is that? All of those questions have to be coming up. So then at the end of that, really, you feel, I see what you are saying. This is the way it is. I see what you're saying. Nothing has changed. You see this? Shravana means you have not changed your identity. No, that is far from it. But at least you are convinced that the teaching is telling the truth. And it's a very funny situation. The teaching is telling the truth and you don't see it. You don't want to disbelieve it and you cannot see it. All that has to be crossed over. And so that is what is called Shravanam. So someone pointing out what it is called Shravanam. Then comes your own analysis. Step by step. Here when I remember this, this has been quite a while, I just remembered it from memory. But when Swami Maheshananji was giving this example, and I think that the example was from one of the chapters, I think the 6th chapter of Pancadasi, where Vidyaranya actually has revealed this example. And Swami Maheshananji was just following what Vidyaranya was saying. So what Vidyaranya was saying was that the process of this
tiger cub eating the meat is not easy. Not easy. Because the fellow has spent years eating grass and he subsists on that. It's almost like, it's imagine a human being who's born a vegetarian and suddenly you are asked to eat raw lamb or one of those raw sushis in Japan. It'd be impossible, very difficult. I don't know if I told you this or not, but there was an interesting experience one time. I was with HP and I happened to be leading a delegation of our people to Japan. So I was the one who arranged it, and I was the head of that department, and there were about 10, 12 people. No, I think the Hewlett-Packard people were only 5 or 6, but we also have some software partners who were with us. So we took them all to Japan in HP to introduce them to the Japanese people and so on. So one day the secretary of the Japanese group that was hosting us called my secretary and said, does Vijay-san have any restrictions? So she says, oh, I'm glad you called. He's a vegetarian. He doesn't eat any meat. So he says, no meat? She says, no meat. It's all vegetarian. He says, oh, wonderful. We'll take care of it. This really happened. So after the first day's meeting, in the end, there was a kind of like a dinner banquet. And, they all raised their glasses and said, thank you very much for all coming and so on and so forth. Special thanks to Vijay-san. I was sitting right next to him. And now we all are going to have the dinner. I'm so happy that he's a vegetarian. We already knew about it and so on. So let us begin. So we had some salad and so on, which was nice. Then they brought the main dish. And the main dish was a bouillabaisse of fish. I could see fish in there, and so I looked at it and I said, this is not vegetarian. So I'm not eating. I didn't want to just tell him anything. I just said, the fellow said, I'm not very hungry. I just want to eat. He could also tell there's something wrong. So he says, no, but, so I said, so he says, but fish is not meat. I says, I don't eat fish. He says, I am so sorry, this, that, or the other. They brought some other tofu for me, or whatever it is. So it is not easy for a vegetarian to suddenly be given raw meat. And there were some raw meat pieces sitting there. I tell you, it was very interesting. And not possible. It takes, supposing you're saying that, you'll be jailed if you don't eat. Like if you go you're jailed. And the only food available there is hamburgers. And if you don't eat that, you starve to death. You'll probably start eating it just to save your life. So, Swami Maheswaranji also says that, Swami Vidyaranya also says that to change the identity and to learn to behave in a different way is not easy, because it is a completely different pedigree altogether. But that's what it is. What can we do? So that second step where you behave, you superimpose, you force yourself to assume the second identity is the mananam. That is what mananam is. What mananam is, now you can see, really so, in terms of the identity of what you are and what you want to be, this is given in Drik Drishya Viveka, all over, but so for example, Drik Drishya Viveka. So in Drik Drishya Viveka it says, your pedigree is like a drik. And you are taking your pedigree as a drishya. There is a huge difference between a seer and a seen. Huge difference. don't you see it? And I said, no, I don't see it. Because, you see, the worst thing is that I'm both a seer and seen both. And in fact, the Drikdishya Viveka is a very beautiful text. I will probably take it again, even though we have done it so many times. But such a beautiful, very important text. And the very first verse starts, Rupam Drishyam Rochanam Drik. Tattu Drishyam Manasam, etc., etc. It goes. What it says is that what you see is the scene, obviously, drishya. And with respect to what you are seeing, your eyes are the drik, is the seer. Very simple. This is what we also assume. We know that I see something and my eyes are seeing. So my eyes are the seer and the object in front of me is the scene. Very simple. Not that simple. Why? Because the eyes now become the scene and the mind becomes the seer. So you say, what's the problem? That's okay. No. Because any reality means it does not change its stripes. If it changes its stripes, we don't know what is real, the one that was before or one is later on. So in the case of the eyes, at one time it is the seer and another time it is the seen. It is both seer and seen. No, in Hindi, ye nahi chalega. This is not going to happen. This is not kosher. Why is it? Because that means there is something funny going on. One time it is blue, sometimes it is yellow, and there's none of them with those colors are real. So therefore, then you keep going and keep. So then it says that really speaking, the eyes may appear to be seeing, and ultimately they are reflecting you, the seer. They don't have the seerness by themselves. Seerness is not the swarupa of the eyes. It is simply a borrowing of the seerness. In fact, there is only one seer. And that is you, the consciousness. And so, there they say that all the other things keep on changing, sometimes becoming seen, sometimes becoming a seer. The consciousness is never seen. It is always a seer. That is the real seer. And so now we can say that the viveka between drishya and drik needs to be done so that you define the family of things that are seeable and the pedigree of the seer, and you should see you are really the seer, not the seen. You think you belong to the family of the seen, that sometimes assumes seerness, but even that seerness is also seen, isn't it? In fact, the seen pedigree of the seen stops at the ahankara, I. That I, the I consciousness means me, this is me, is also seen. That I consciousness has a certain identity. This is who I am. I consciousness is also a series of thoughts, and it is filled in with body, mind, and other things. So that is also seen. When you say I am unhappy, you know I am unhappy. So the unhappiness of the mind is seen. So that is the entire pedigree of seeing. The ahankara is the ultimate seeing, not a seer. Only the sakshi, the consciousness, Brahman, Atma is the seer. And so you think you are a human being with a body-mind complex. You are not. That is not the pedigree. You have identified with a pedigree which is different from who you are. And so just correct that mistake. And if you're not ready to accept it, just put that aside and come back again when you're ready to look into it. That is the truth. It's not as though you're going to come up with a new truth. It is already the truth, but you just don't see it. And so this whole process of questioning, of understanding what is the difference between the pedigrees. It's like the tiger cub saying, okay, so what is the, why I am one of the lambs. And he says, no, look at this lamb. Does he look like you? No. Does he talk like you? No. So you don't belong to that pedigree. So similarly, we can say that the identity of a human being, it is, don't you see that it changes? In fact, this is what we study in the Mandukya Upanishad, that you are a waker one time, your identity of who you are as a waker is not permanent. Sometimes you become a dreamer, sometimes you become a sleeper. So where does the ahankara? It keeps on changing. And that is not a reality because the seer is never away from the reality of the seer. Don't you see the basic difference between them? So all of those kinds of things pointed out by the Shruti, where you have to think about it, is really mananam. This is the step of the mananam. And then comes where you are now comfortable with your new identity. Just like a tiger cub. So the tiger cub has taken a little while to start eating meat and roaring, and it doesn't even run. So the mother and the father says, okay, baby, you are ready to now, you understand you're a tiger? He says, yeah, I think I know I'm a tiger. Okay, you see that deer over there? Just kill it and eat it. Oh, he says, no, I don't know, I think I can do that, this poor deer. Just do it. I'm telling you, that's what you're meant to do. Okay, otherwise you'll starve. But after a while, then he says, gingerly it kills a deer. And then slowly gets accustomed to it. It's the new identity. Similarly here also, the Shastra roars and says, do it. This is your identity. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'm still a human being. And he says, oh my God, okay, you're good for nothing. When you're ready to learn, come back. You're not ready to. And then more than that, it helps. And we'll be talking a lot about that as we study. About, differences, what is Jivan Mukti. There's so much material to see. All of that is to convince yourself that, my goodness, what a basic mistake I made. How amazing. So that feeling natural in the new identity, where it becomes your own second nature. First nature actually is nididhyasana. is nididhyasa. So, these are not just words. We sometimes study this academically. And these are not academics. This is you. And you have to see what's happening. How do I change the identity? And so here, I was thinking about this verse number 8 from Drikdashya Viveka, which we talked recently with Swami Paramatmananda, I believe did not go into this. He stopped at number 7. I was talking to Chawla, I think. So in number 8 and 9, these are very important, very not only beautiful, but very important verses. So look at this verse. It says, Ahankarasya tadatmyam chitchaya deha sakshibhi. Ahankarasya tadatmyam chitchaya deha sakshibhi. So ahankara means the identity of a human being. So all of us have a personality of a human being. We're all different from each other, many almost similar, but we don't look at the similarity. We all have heart and blood and the liver, mind, legs, all of that is similar, but the shapes are all slightly different. So we are really about 1% different, 99% we are the same. Anyway, we all have a certain personality. This is me. My own history, my own future, my relationships, all of that. This is the ahankara. Okay, so this is what is called ahankara. Aham karoti iti ahankara. One which says me, me, me. Where did you go yesterday? Oh, yesterday I went there. And then I came here. So this me, always me, me, me. Which is known to you. Which is a drishya. But very often you act as a drik. I saw that person. Drik. And I heard drik. I'm hearing drik. But this drik is not its own. It is borrowed from the sakshi. It's just like, for example, when you are heating water. The water does have the ability to make tea and to heat up things and boil and make dal and all that. Water does have that. But the heat of the water is not its own. It is borrowed from the fire. Only the fire has the original heat. Everything else is borrowed. So that is a different thing. The fact that you are a drik, maybe you are borrowing it, but that's not your original one. You're really basically the pedigree of the drishya. The ahankara is the pedigree of the drishya, not the drik. So there it says now, so that is the central one. This ahankara is the fulcrum. So this fulcrum now further identifies with a lot of other things. So by in itself, this is a very important verse, and we may run out of time, but I'll at least give you, let's see what else do I want to do. Yeah, that's all I have. So I think I can do quite a bit of this. So tadatmyam means identity. Tasya atma means the minus of that is called tadatmyam. Tasya atmyam, tadatmyam. Identity. Identity. Very much like, for example, I'm saying you say I'm a Democrat. It's an identity. That's it. You behave like a Democrat. You think like a Democrat, I hope. And so, at least I am. And so that is called an identity, tadatmyam. That I am Indian is a tadatmyam. That I'm an American citizen is a tadatmyam. So the ahankara has tadatmyam with three basic things. Ahankarasya tadatmyam chit-chaya, deha and sakshi. Okay? Three things it is identified with. And how so? So here the example given by Swami by I always say Swami Maheshananji, but really by Vidyaranya, a very important one. And I don't know why this is not taken up more often, is a person standing in front of a mirror and looking at the image of oneself in the mirror. Okay, this is the example. This is the example. So consider this example. The person standing in front of the mirror in this example is the real one. And the reflection which looks like this person is not real. They are not two people, they are different levels of reality. So this may be a person, and this is person sub 1. So it's not like there are two peoples. Person 1 is, and you can have multiple mirrors, you can have lots of them. As it usually happens, you can see yourself in some kind of a parallel mirrors. There's 30, 40, 50 of you. But there's not 50 of you, there's only one of you with all these other 50 reflections. Anyway, leave aside that. You are looking at the reflection. Okay? So now, this is the ahankara. This is me. And the ahankara has 3 different identifications. Ahankarasya tadatmyam chit-chaya deha sakshibhi. And let me complete this verse and then I'll explain what each one of them is. Chit-chaya is sahajam, deha is karmajam, and sakshi tadatmyam is bhrantijanyam. Okay? So, you have 3 different kinds. Now I'm having fun with all this. This is good. Nice. Look at that. I'm getting good at this. Okay. So now we have 3 kinds of identification and 3 ways why they are born. Okay? So one identification is with the chit-chaya. Chit-chaya means, in this case, the copy of you in the mirror. So chit-chaya Actually, in this case, it will be the copy of consciousness. Copy of consciousness. A copy of consciousness means that, for example, in the water, when it is heated, the heat of the water is the copy of the heat of the fire. Okay? So chit chaya. So chit chaya means the copy in the mirror. This is one identification. The second one is deha. Means the body. Right? So, for example, supposing you are wearing some jewelry, or you're wearing, let's say, a hat. So, your identification is not with the hat, but with the body that you are seeing. So, this is the body. The third one is with the sakshi. Is it a longi? I don't know. Maybe a longi, I'm not sure. So this is the witness. Okay? Now, how they are born? This is sahajam. Ahankarasya tadatmyam chitchaya deha sakshibhihi. The first one is sahajam. Sahajam means natural. Means not a problem. The second one is dehajam, which is karmajam, means due to your previous, so karma meaning your previous actions, where all the sanchita karma, etc., where you are at the moment, after all the previous lives and so on. And then you have an identification with the sakshi, which is due to complete error, bhranti. Okay? So now I'll put it together. We won't go into the next verse, which is number 9. So we'll just stay with this for the time being, but let me complete the picture of this. Okay? So here in this case, what happens is that if you can see that this is my reflection, that is not a problem. As long as there is a mirror, your reflection will be there. And it is not a problem. In other words, if you were to understand that your body-mind complex is your reflection, not you, you have no problems whatsoever. So if the reflection gets disturbed, you're not disturbed. You don't say, oh my God, something is happening to me. So the seeing of reflection is not a problem. And this is a very big thing which we will discuss later on some other time. This is the central thesis of Vedantic teaching. That Jivan Mukta, the one who has reached the final stage of understanding, is not upset by what is happening to the body-mind complex. Just like a person who clearly understands that this is my, it may look like me, but it is not me. And if you put some red color and put crosses on your reflection, you laugh about it. Similarly, for the Jivan Mukta's life also, if someone insults him, is an inner laughter. You may have to have some decorum and say, why are you doing this to me? That's okay. But inside you say, my God. Is what I sometimes get very impressed by, really what reportedly Christ said when they were nailing him to the cross. He looks like he understood the whole thing. He says, who are you killing? You're not killing me. You're killing my body. Why are you doing this? You go ahead and do it. It doesn't matter to me. I'll go through some little bit of a pain and so on, but that's nothing to do. This is a Jivan Mukta talking. And so Chit Chaya, identification as a Chit Chaya, there's so much more to talk about. I'm just giving you a quick summary of that. Is not a problem. Then the identification with this body is karmajam, and there is nothing you can do about it. As soon as you become a Jivan Mukta, you don't turn into a Devata or anything like that. You are still having the same body. If you're a male, you will stay as a male. Female, still female. Black, white, doesn't make any difference. That is all karmajam. When the karma gets exhausted, then the identification will automatically drop, but not until then. This is Ishvara Sankalpa. All my prarabdha karma is Ishvara Sankalpa. Very important to see. Ishvara Sankalpa means that a decision has been made by Ishvara that based on all of your background, work and so on and so forth, I think this person should be a woman born in such and such with this kind of a body, these kinds of problems and so on. Done. That's it. The Sankalpa means the order has been passed. And there's nothing you can do about it. And the only good thing is that the order is for a short time, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, that's it. Then you can start a brand new campaign. So this is called Karmajam. The problem is Bhrantijanyam, the identification with the Sakshi. And I remember when I heard this first time from Swami Dayanandji, I used to have a problem. What do you mean? With the identification is with the Sakshi is what we want. How is that a problem? It took me a long time to understand it. And finally, I think this example that Vidyaranya took and explained so well by Swami Maheshananji really kind of put the nails on the understanding. What it said is that if the ahankara doesn't think of the reflection as a reflection, but thinks of the reflection as me, problems. That is what is means by Bhrantijanyam. You see, that is the thing. And so that can happen in many ways. If you are a child, it can happen. If you are an animal, that can happen. If you are drunk, it can happen. If you are under drugs, it can happen. The sane person understands it, but it is very possible. Here, our Shastra says, Maya is the drink. You are drunk. You are inebriated. It's a very powerful alcohol. Very powerful alcohol. The reason is I am totally deluded into thinking that I am the body. The Sakshi is the Ahankara. The Ahankara is not the Sakshi. Swami Chinmayananda had given, this is the last example I'll give, it's already time. Swami Chinmayananda had given this example, I remember this so well. So I think I've given this example before, that in the holy time, there is a custom amongst college students. When I was in college, I never did that, to drink bhang. And it was kind of like condoned. So it's like, liquid marijuana, and you get high on it. And so in our engineering college, I never saw any such behavior. It was, we would drink beer once in a while or something like this, and some people would have liquor, but not this bhang. So anyway, the example is that there was a person who was going to college, and on holy time, everybody said, let's have bhang. And so they all got drunk. And everybody else was having problem, but the marijuana did some funny things to this person's mind. And he said, oh, what's happening to me? I can't believe this. I don't like this. Why did you do this to me? And all kinds of things. So his friend said, no, it'll be okay, don't worry about it. He says, no. I want to go home. I just want to go home. So his friends all got very alarmed, and they called his dad and said, we're very sorry, we were all having bhang, and we thought that your son will also have fun, but he's acting very funny, you please take him home. So he says, okay, I'll be right there. So he and his couple of buddies took him, put him in the back seat, and he kept saying, I want to go home, I want to go home. They say, okay, home is coming. Finally, they took him to the home, put him on the bed, and put the blanket on him, and he says, okay, are you okay? No, I want to go home. So they said, no, but you are already home. There is nothing more that you need to do. But he kept on shouting, no, I want to go home. Swami Chinmayananda used to say, this is the meaning of Hari Om. Please hurry me to home. And this is our situation. When you have a drunk person sitting in front of a mirror, if you think that this is my reflection, there is no problem. You can make funny faces and so on and so forth. But if you think that this is you, you'd have complete ignorance of who you really are. The distinction between the bimba and the pratibimba is lost. This is called bhranti. And so there now we says, sambandhinoho satoho nasti nivritti sahajasya tu. He says that as far as the combination sambandha between chit chaya and you, there is no reason to change that. You cannot say, I don't like my reflection. No fool will say that. Actually, we all say that. Is this what I look like? Oh my God, I've gotten so old. But really, most of us will say that nothing to do with it. It's okay. So he says, Sambandhino nas, verse number 9. Sambandhinoho satoho. I think there's a mistake here. There should be satoho. Sambandhinoho satoho nasti nivritti tasya sahajasyatu. He says that there's no reason to bemoan the fact that you look like has nothing to do with it. Then the other two, nivartete kramadubhe, karmakshayat. So the first one is that when karmas are gone, That means your prarabdha karma has brought you into a particular body-mind situation. That is the Ishvara Sankalpa. You cannot change it for the duration of this life, and nothing you should do about it. There's nothing you can do about it, and really is not a problem. You don't need to, this is why people change their sex. This is the funniest thing I heard of, really, just amazing. Anyway, there's nothing that. Then the third one is the important one. Prabodha. Prakarshena bodha. So prabodha means that this drunkenness, that I am not of this pedigree but of a different pedigree, that can only be done through a sustained exposure to knowledge, where the mistake is clearly, repeatedly, forcefully, with a lot of shraddha pointed out. When that happens, then the viveka between drik and drishya becomes very clear. So really speaking, the fundamental part of all of that we are doing, going back to the basics of what I was saying earlier, it's a matter of false identity. This is, I'm going to, you know what? Wow, powerful. This is the key. This is the key. We should keep in mind, it's not just studying books and so on and so forth, and this, that, or the other. There is a fundamental misidentification. And so it is not going to do with becoming knowledgeable and reading books and doing some work. And we've got to really think about what happened. And so you don't have to improve your identity. You have to discard it completely. And this is what the study of Vedanta teaches us, really. It is a tadatmyam. And so this is the essence of the teaching. And what we will do is, I'm going to possibly may finish it to make sure that you are very familiar with each of the verses and so on and so forth. But the last few verses I will redo for better understanding, and then hopefully this will be over soon, and then we will revise it and so on and so forth. So that's the plan. Om Sato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityo Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo